What's up, guys? I am James, and today we're going to be talking about Bad Batch's Episode 6, The Infiltration, and Episode 7, Extraction. So what's interesting about this week is we got 2 episodes, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down Episode 6, and then I'm going to talk about Episode 7. So we'll just go in that order. That way, if you haven't watched Episode 7 yet, but you want to check out the video, you can do that, watch through Episode 6, and then we'll talk about Episode 7 right after. Last week, I was saying this is the best episode of the season so far, and this week I think they topped it. I think they did a better job at just encapsulating everything we like about the Bad Batch, and really it was as good as last week's episode without that giant monster that I was talking about. We didn't have to have a giant monster. We just had to have clones and story and purpose. And boy, I hope you were paying attention on this episode, because there are so many characters that have shown up in the Bad Batch or Clone Wars or other things like that. I mean, you kick it right off with Senator Singh, and then Avi Singh, and then you've got Chuchi as well. And it's like, okay, so that's like from the first season, and then that's from the second season. And then obviously who's there is Rex and Howzer and a couple other newer troopers that we haven't seen before, but they're obviously part of all in the group. It's crazy. I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, and that person, okay, now we're getting that person. Okay, oh, they're back. Oh, that's cool. Okay. And it just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And as the episode goes on, obviously there's like, there's Fireball, and there's I'll say it right now, the big reveal at the end is obviously Wolf, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. It just is like they're just bringing in character after character after character. But to talk about the episode itself, I'd say like my favorite thing about it, again, just like last week's, is Crosshairs like sort of in between. Like, he was a clone, then he worked for the Empire and betrayed all the clones. Now he's back on the clone side again, and it's hard for people to trust him, and it makes a lot of sense. But specifically, Howzer was like a fan favorite clone from season 2, and we all saw how that whole scenario went down. So Howzer specifically talking to Rex and being like, we gotta get the Bad Batch here, because if you want to learn about Tantus, we have to ask Crosshair what is up. He knows stuff, and there's this sort of ulterior motive of like, he kind of wants him to show up because he wants to like wring out all of his issues with the character. So it's interesting because when he shows up, there's obviously tension there, and it continues through the episode, even into when we're finding out more about these shadow clones, these clone X troopers. It seems like there's a lot of them. It seems like they activate them specifically for these very specific missions. They've been wiped, and the interesting thing here is that the reason Crosshair knows about that stuff is because they tried to make him one. And it's interesting to write it into the story too. Well, why didn't it work? Well, I've never followed orders. I'm a defect clone. I don't work right. I don't do the things they want me to do. And it, let's go with it. Like that works for me. I really, these people are human, and they're basically the same as the other clone. They just have these extra little things or whatever. But anytime we ever get into these scenarios where we really need them to be distinct and different than just the sheep of what a clone can be, just being able to say like, I don't follow the rules, it's like, it's fine with me. That works. I'm okay with it. But really, I was like looking through this episode, and I was like trying to find the thing that I don't like about it. I was looking for my least favorite part. I don't really know that there was a least favorite part. I liked all of everything that happened in the episode. It really starts off so well with the Rex stuff at the beginning as he's coming through with his team and all that, and it felt very infiltrating. But I will say, if there was a least thing, and this is such a dumb thing to say, but like, there's this conference he's having with Chuchi, and he's like, yeah, that didn't go the way we wanted. Maybe you should keep your profile low. I'm like, what do you think she's been doing? Like, obviously that even meeting with Avi Singh was like, the other senator, it's like this crazy like covert thing where they're like sneaking them in to talk to each other and stuff. maybe keep your profile low. I like, what else is she doing? I don't know. It's very, very nitpicky thing if I'm looking for something in the episode, but I agree that I don't know what she's been doing, and maybe on a regular day she is kind of like more open and still kind of in the public eye. She's obviously not like a senator anymore. I think if I remember correctly, I think that was all like denounced when she like stood up against the clone, or up against the Empire and all that, and she went off the grid. Maybe she has a little bit of a presence, and Rex is just like, just cut all that out. Like, I don't know, but it's interesting. I like the dynamic where like she was on one side and the other senator was on the other side, but they can kind of piece together like, look, this is the world we're living in the Bad Batch now. We're up against the Empire. This isn't the Clone Wars anymore. And we have a common enemy, a common goal that we want to at least restore democracy to the degree of like, we can be on different sides, but we'll talk it out instead of just like, takeover or whatever. So I liked that aspect. And that was like the political side of the show. The rest of the episode was all about the Bad Batch. It was about Omega. It was about these X-troopers and stuff. Like, it just all really came together. And I got to say, I think this is in contention with the last episode, is maybe like so far the best of the season. But that's not even the end of it, because we got episode 7 coming up. So let's move on to Extraction. All right. Yep. Feels just straight up like we moved right into the next episode. Very good. It wasn't just 2 random episodes. And I think that is maybe something that the Bad Batch, or actually a lot of these shows, have generally suffered from. They always kind of feel like they're episode to episode, and long term, they kind of have like a big connectivity thing, which builds in this thing where people go, well, I don't really know what that episode was about. That didn't really seem like it had anything to do with anything. And we usually have to say like, trust us, it'll pay off. And sometimes it doesn't, but I don't know. It's weird. Sometimes it feels like they just kind of are random episodes, which is fine. But I think and probably a lot of people, other people prefer that we get an episode or a season of a show like this, where it literally just feels like every episode has been back to back to back to back, and they're just taking you right where they left off every single time. We'll see where future episodes go, but specifically on this double week, episode 7 just picks up right where episode 6 left off, and they're trying to get out of this pillar. And I'll say this, I'll start off right away with I think my weakest point of this thing is it felt weird watching them try to escape out of this pillar, because it felt very easy for them to get away. And I kept thinking, why isn't Wolf and the other team, why aren't they just like surrounding this thing? Like, why don't they just like set up a perimeter, and they're like, you're not going to get out of here. But it feels like they come in from the top, then they find out they're going down, then they go to the bottom. And it is true that they're coming at them from both sides, but they still manage to get away. And I'm like, when I'm taking my notes, it's like, it's one of these things where I do kind of feel like the stakes are high, but it often feels like there's enough times where I'm like, oh, they're ambushed, but then they get away. Oh, they're coming at, they're coming right behind them. And then they catch up with them, but they get away, and it's always they get away, and nobody ever gets hurt. Nobody on the good team ever gets shot or killed or anything like that. I know it's a kid's show, but they definitely do stuff like this all the time. You can put them in dangerous situations, but it does feel a little weak sometimes when it's consistently like 6 times an episode that the entire group is bombed, like literally like blown up, and nobody dies. Nobody is even injured or whatever. Everybody's just like, man, that was a crazy plane crash we were just in. It's like, I don't know how many times ships have crashed in this series so far. That being said, I did really like this episode. I actually think this just continues with like the best of the series, or the best of the season so far. It's just been really, really, really good. And I got to say, like, I think there's 2 parts that are obviously like, or there's one part that's really obviously, I think everybody's like favorite. And that's that end moment where you have the confrontation between Rex and Wolf. I think it's a little weird that he let him go. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I feel like every other trooper there would be like, what are we doing now? That guy's committing, some sort of traitorism or something, whatever. But they just sort of let him go, and that's fine. But I really like the moment where they're having that discussion. It's like, I thought you were dead. You know what you're doing is wrong. We're not fighting against you. You're on our side. We're fighting against the Empire, and he lets them go because they're clones and they're brothers and all this other stuff. And I feel like that type of camaraderie can be hard for us to understand. But when you are part of a civilization that is not just like, hey, we have this in common because we look like each other or we're from the same place. They literally are each other. It's like twins, but hundreds of thousands of them. I think there is some type of brotherhood that comes with that that's just kind of like inexplainable. So I'm okay with how it ends, and I like that ending. But I will say the best part of the episode by far, in my opinion, is the fight between the X-Trooper and Crosshair. As soon as they go into the sniper battle right away, I was like, that's awesome. They're doing their back and forth. Then they get close. Then they get physical. They're fighting. It's like a knife fight. They move into the river. They get to that point where they're busting out the knives again. But it's just so nuts. It's such a good choreography, and it's just it makes you feel very real and gritty, and they feel alone, but you can hear the shots and the cries of other, things happening over there. It's just really real. It feels very cool. We get to that point too where he holds them under the water, and it totally pays off because just like episode 5, I think, where we had that tension between Hunter and Crosshair, and they resolved it. Now in episodes 6 and 7, we have this new tension between Howzer and Crosshair, and Howzer learned also too that Crosshair has gone through some stuff, but he's made some changes, and he ends up being the one who rescues him. I think it's all payoff. It's all just really good, feel good payoff, and makes you feel like everything you've been watching is earned. And like I said, I like just the way that it's going back to back to back to back to back this season. It's very good, and I am very excited to see where we're going to go with the rest of the season, episode 7s, 8, 9s, and I'm just hoping that this hopefully would be the best season of the Bad Batch. I think right now season 2 is really holding that. But I'm curious as the more we move along, if people are starting to fall in love with the Bad Batch season 3, even more so, because it feels like it's full of a lot of episodes that we got in season 2 that we really liked. And then season 3 is just a bunch of those episodes. So I don't know what you guys think, but that's going to be it for episodes 6 and 7, the review. Kind of a longer one today because we had to do 2 episodes, but if you did like it, leave a comment. If you didn't like the episodes, leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking, but make sure to either way, leave that like and subscribe to the channel. If you like Star Wars and you're here for the Bad Batch, know that we have other stuff on the channel, which is 2 episodes weekly, where we're talking about Star Wars news and discussions and what ifs and all sorts of other fun stuff over on the Resistance broadcast. So if you're into Star Wars and maybe not even on YouTube all the time, it's a podcast, so just listen to us anywhere and check it out and have a good time. And hopefully you're enjoying the Bad Batch, because that's what we're here for. Bad Batch Reaction Show is out. I will see you next episode, and until then, take care.